down, just laying on your back. If ever the low back is aggravated, you can keep the feet slid in a little closer. That helps the low back be a little bit more flat. Or if it feels better to lengthen out, that's also fine. Let's begin here just by relaxing into some good deep breaths. So the inhale, completely inflate the lungs, even the belly. Nice long exhale, let it go. You need to flow with inhales and exhales deep and full like this. It's almost like each inhale gathers up some tension that we didn't even know about sometimes. That exhale just releases it out. No longer needing to be in the body. So as these breaths continue to flow like this for us, we'll take a moment to connect with our intention for our class today. The idea that we're connecting with today is connection. This is a month where I'm tuning into different gratitudes that I have different days. And today I was just really grateful for connection. As humans, really, we need some degree of connection. Some people more, some people less. But that connection helps us to stay sane. So connection, I think it's something deeply ingrained in us. And I think that we're more deeply connected than we cerebrally think that we are. And so that's why it feels good to reach out and help somebody. That's why it feels good to occasionally be acknowledged, have somebody say our name, look us in the eyes. So today's about that kind of gratitude for connection. And it's nice because we'll be using lots of props today, bolster, 2 blocks. And so these props help us feel physically connected to something. Something's sitting here supporting us in our various postures. So let yourself release into the connections today, really fully being supported and feel that. Sometimes we hold ourselves up so much on our own that we don't always allow ourselves to feel that. That's the idea that we'll be tuning into today as we head gradually through our class, through all sorts of stretches. And so to begin nice and gently, let's begin to allow the hands and the knees to connect together right in front of our torso, in front of our body. And with that connection in place, begin to rock around. Notice what type of rocking feels best today. Some days I'll do a circular type of rocking, letting the knees trace a circle in the sky. And feel how that knee circle helps the hips to loosen up some tightness. Some days it's more of a left and right rocking or an up and down rocking. Begin to tune into how you're connected with the hips and low back at this moment. We'll give it 2 more breaths. Just tune into it. And we'll begin to release the left leg all the way to stretch long on the ground. With this right knee, clasp hands around that side and try to pull the knee in just a little bit deeper. Feel the depth that feels appropriate for your body today. Sink into a good breath right at that spot. We'll allow the right hand to connect to the right knee, pulling the knee wide to the right for a moment. And then lifting the knee up, left hand takes over. Take that knee into a partial twist, crossing somewhat over the body. We'll do that gentle rocking in the hip itself twice more. Open the knee wide to right. Allow it to cross over body. On this third cycle, we're going to stay in a twist. It may feel really nice for the twist to be supported by the bolster. The bolster sliding right up underneath that right knee, giving it something to rest on. If the bolster is still too far, you can even scoot a block under it as well, adding more height. But find a placement where both shoulders can be connected to the ground, arms spreading open. And then the knee is connected to something. Through that connection, you're able to release muscular effort. So feel some good deep breaths flow. Feel how the release of the exhale can mimic the release of the muscular effort in this leg and in the core. On trying to return back into the body. It's crazy how disconnected we can be from our body. Some people, it's almost like the only reason they have a body is to carry their head from one place to another. Like they're totally disconnected. Keep on returning. Keep on listening to sensations that are arising. Even if it may seem boring at first, it's trying to break the ice, break out of numbness. Returning home in a very real sense. Be with our breath for a moment. 2 more huge cycles on this half. For the second cycle, feel the right hip gradually returning to the earth. Once it's in contact with earth, slide the right leg back long. Left knee comes in, give it a clasp, hugging it tight. When you're ready to do the 3 cycles, let the left knee open out to left hand. And lifting back up, right hand takes over, partial twist. Eventually doing that in round number 2. Number 3. On that third one, you can stay in the twist, especially if you loved using the bolster before. Switch bolster to second side, even block if you added the extra height. Set it up in a way that you can have connection. That left leg easing down onto something. And then shift your perception to upper back connection, spreading the arms open wide on the earth. And then feel the connection of the breath. This is one where it's harder to breathe in the chest. So you'll notice if you breathe into the belly, that's that spot in between hip and shoulders. So breathing there does ease us partially out of the twist. And the exhale releases deeper, deeper right into it. With a mind chatter, less from a perspective of judgment, more from a perspective of curiosity. Almost like you're an outsider, looking at the thoughts like they were clouds passing across the sky. The clouds can be so different. Some of them are dark. Some of them are fluffy. Some of them are really big, even cover the whole sky, such a deep thought. Others are just a little wisp. Nothing's right or wrong about the thoughts that are passing through, but we're connecting with them in a whole new way. Let's take 2 more deep breaths, let them flow in and out. Another in and out. And from there, as we start to ease this left hip back to the earth, we'll take another moment, bringing the knees into the hands right above our chest. And feel the circles, the loosening of the low back that feels good here. A couple of rounds of breath. One more huge breath in and out. And then we're going to ease our way up to a seated place. So if you'd like to just roll directly up, some people will do that. Others will take a fetal position and then press their way up to your preference. From here, take your bolster the width of the mat direction, and it's going to be kind of closer toward the foot of the mat. So from there, you're going to come sit on it. I'm going to face it, and I'll face it this way with you guys. You're going to come sitting up onto it. From that spot, plant the feet in front of you. Maybe about as wide as that, maybe slightly wider. You'll have to play with it. The distance away depends on how easy it is to sit up. Further away is easier to sit up tall. Closer gets a little bit more crunchy in the back. So find the depth that feels good. And then our hands are going to come to inner knees. Let the hands slide down and feel how that helps to push the hips open. Giving those hips the first chance to start stretching. So let some good deep breaths flow. See if you can allow low back to straighten up a little bit more. And from this spot, let's ease into our neck a little bit. So drop the right ear to right shoulder. Release through the left half. Very slowly roll the chin down through the chest. And go all the way over to left shoulder. Slowly roll all the way back to right shoulder. All the way back to left. Roll chin down to chest. Floats back up. Let the right leg slide open to the right. With this next stretch, we're doing 3 things in one. So the left hand pushes the left knee open, that's a hip opener. The sternum tries to twist toward your straight leg, that's a spinal twist. And then we slide our right hand down the right leg, that's a hamstring stretch. So 3 things in one, pushing the left hip open, twisting the sternum to be a bit more down, and leaning toward that straight leg. The hand is more comfortable resting on the ground off to the side, that's fine. Do whatever helps you to lean more comfortably, effortlessly over that right leg. Before we switch sides, take a couple of breaths, walking both hands through the center. You're only leaning forward enough that the low back is getting a gentle open. Walking back in, let's switch our legs. Scoop that right foot back into plank, left foot slides out. Beginning the 3 on this side. Right hand pushes the right knee open. Sternum twist toward the left leg, and then leaning toward left. Digging deeper into our body, notice what is the tightest of these 3 things for your experience. Even though the lungs can't actually reach anywhere, the air can't reach anywhere but directly through the lungs. Imagine the lungs could reach to your tight spot. Maybe it's the low back, maybe it's the hamstring, maybe it's the hip. Imagine the lungs reached all the way there, and each breath you took in, deep and slow, touched directly upon that tight spot, helping you remind it that it doesn't have to be that way. Reminding it what ease feels like. Those couple of breaths, both hands walking into the center. Lean forward to the point that low back is still okay. breath flows in and out. Gentle rise up. And then when both feet come to plant in front of us, it's not so wide. We're staying sitting on the bolster, but heading onto our back again. So you might want to scoot a little bit further forward so that you'll have the hips completely on the bolster as you head back. If you feel like you're starting to tilt off the bolster, just readjust when you're partway there on your elbows. Eventually elbows slide out wide. We've got ourselves lifted up, our hips upward. So now begin to slide both legs further away. What this does is bring our back into an arch shape, a back bend shape. It also helps to expose the psoas right on the front of the hips. That psoas is required for every step we take. It contracts to help lift the knee up in front of us. Sometimes that psoas gets really tight. Now we're going to be here just a little bit longer. If you're here in this shape and you're like, I don't know that I really feel the front of my hip stretching at all. If that's you, I'd like you to slide your feet in close again, lift up your hips, and slide a block under your hips so you've got a couple of extra inches that you're adding to it. And then legs slide back out long. You notice yourself kind of resisting against it? Feel if you can relax into that. It's more like we're made of putty than bones. Play with how it feels, spreading the feet a little bit wider versus scooting a little closer. Find the spot that feels very best. We've got just a couple more good breaths flowing. Three more cycles, deep and slow. As you finish the third, let the feet slide back in, planting. If you've got the block, it's your personal preference for the next section. If you're staying with the extra height of the block or removing it, it's a little bit more comfortable to remove it just because it's more padded. But we'll start to take one knee in and then the second knee into the chest. And then we're setting the knees wide so that we can take a happy baby pose. Each hand grabs for the outside edges of feet as the knees are wide. Because we've got the bolster under the hips, that low back is naturally supported in its curvature here. So feel how that allows the hips to open a little bit more with gravity. There's that connection we have to gravity. Hip opener could be where you want to stay today for a little bit longer. Some of us may want to move up into hamstrings instead, legs floating up to sky, and then tilting into the degree that feels comfortable for you. You can even place a hand on each shin to support the weight of it. Just letting it kind of fall into the point that feels comfortable. Two more deep breaths. Connect with the body, connect with the breath. For that second breath, the knees start to bend. We're slowly going to tilt over to the side in a fetal position. So let yourself take time, kind of falling your hips off the bolster for a moment. Over to the side fetal. Take 2 or 3 relaxing breaths. It's a nice sensation of blood rushing down to the feet. The inverted position with the legs being so healthy for swollen feet. Good, and then hands underneath us, press us up. Still maintaining the bolster where it is. We're gonna swing the legs underneath us. With the hands going in front of the bolster, we're gonna lower our low ribs down directly onto the bolster. If the elbows stay on the ground, this is more of a Sphinx pose. If the elbows straighten up, with that support under the ribs, it's more of it's called a seal pose in Yin Yoga. So your choice in how deep the back bend is. But either way, let's slide the right knee closer to the right shoulder so that we can feel the low back and that hip release just a little bit more. Be aware that the neck, you can do whatever you like with it. You can roll it out like we were before, or even just let it drop down so that the back of the neck can receive that stretch. Imagine breathing the intention of release into the low back. Eventually sliding this right leg back. Let's take the left knee up. So realizing we can be just as playful with the intensity of the back bend as we wish. Elbows down, always fine. Elbows lifted up just onto the bolster is another option, right in between. Maybe head continues to drop down if that still feels good for neck. Your choice. One more good inhale. Long exhale. And then as the legs slide back, let's take it to a nice child pose. So these can be wide or narrow. I personally like to set the forehead down onto the bolster so that the nose isn't squished at all. So you can find that position that feels good. Arms can stay forward, perhaps beside the bolster, or they can tuck back if that feels good for shoulders. So set yourself up in a comfortable spot, wherever that is. Even not using bolster if you prefer floor. Let's do another deep belly breath in and out. And then finding the hands on the floor, we rise up. So, letting the bolster perhaps be a prop. I'll give you several options with this next one. But take a moment to swing the legs out in front of you. So before we get into it, let's take a few windshield wipers, helping to loosen up the hips, let the knees tilt to the left, the knees tilt to the right. Just feel how that's allowing yourself to connect some of the tightest areas. The looser ones, they're all working together a little bit better. Okay. Now this will be a variation of a hip opener, or it can be as deep as full pigeon pose if that pigeon pose is restorative for you. So the option with the bolster would be having the bolster under the left hip the whole time. That just makes it a little bit easier in the hip. The right knee starts off tucking back. So whether you're sitting on the bolster or not, you get to play with it, but right knee tucks back. And as you begin to lean forward, maybe onto the floor, or maybe this is where you use bolster, you listen to your hip. If this is a good amount of opening for the hip, great. This might be where we stay today. Perhaps the leg wants to stretch all the way back, even just to stretch that psoas. So if you're coming with the leg all the way back, just remember to pick the hips up again in the center so the sacrum can stay level. Just find a way that you can be comfortable. Resting down, it's not too intense on the hip, but it is helping to open it. If hip is lifting off the ground significantly, you can always get a block right under that area. We've got lots of props today to use. Give it time, give it space, give it breath. Go to the depth that your body's still satisfied. It's not screaming. In general, in yoga, we are never looking for actual pain. If ever you experience pain in any yoga class, especially restorative yoga, that's always a cue to adjust or to head out. Pain would be things like sharp, stabbing, throbbing, shooting. If what we're experiencing is a deep stretch, it's not those words I just used. That's the invitation to go a little bit deeper. Try to breathe into it, try to help the muscles relax. Stay on this side for 2 more breaths. After that second breath, if your right hip isn't in contact with anything, rock it down until it is, so that both legs can swing around in front. Let's do a few more windshield wipers. Knees right, knees left. So the tight areas loosen up just a little bit more. When you feel ready for the second side, with this one we have the right one stay and the left one flex back. This could be sitting on the bolster. Maybe from here you just lean forward. It could be scooting the leg partway back. It could be scooting that left leg all the way back. The hips all the way up in the center. So you find this side. Maybe left and right are equal, or maybe you've got an injury that makes this side super different. So just be aware, listen again. That game of connecting. It's an interesting phenomenon because so often as a teacher, when I get a brand new person, completely new to yoga, it's crazy to me how often they don't know if they're experiencing stretch or pain. And it's that kind of connection to our society that has led us to have so many chronic problems, that disconnect from our body. And so our invitation in yoga over and over and over again is listen to it, adjust. Sometimes the slightest little adjustment, the slightest tailbone tuck under, the slightest release of something you're clenching makes all the difference. Keep on returning to the body as much as we can, at least in yoga classes. Try to practice anything but numbness. Try to practice connection. Take 2 more deep, slow breaths. Easing up to another set of windshield wipers, legs out in front. Beautiful. So in our quads, there's a wide range of tightness or flexibility from person to person. So I'll show you a couple of different quad stretch options. Our goal is to try to stretch both at the same time, which is one of the harder ways to stretch the quads. But the easiest, meaning if you're the tightest type of person in your quad, the easiest way we can get into it is taking the bolster back behind us We sit directly onto that. The feet are kind of tucked back. The wider the knees, the easier. The more together the knees and wide the feet, the harder. In this easy variation, you just plant the blocks off to each side so that you can lean back a little bit. This would be option one. If you're already feeling the knees pulling, you're feeling the tightness, this is probably where you're going to be at today. So this is option one again. Option two, if you're a lot more open in those quads, is actually to create a nice little ramp with the bolster. So one block will be on the low height, and the further block will be on the tall height. You have a little bit of space in between so that it can create a little ramp. And then either sitting on the bolster or slightly in front of the bolster, you come to lay your spine onto that ground. So this one, especially if I've got my hips on the ground so that my head can be supported, this one is quite a bit more intense than the first variation. So don't feel like you have to do this one just because it is super comfortable. But find the variation that feels like you've got stretch going on the front of the thigh, but it's not actually hurting the knees. That's one of the big indications here. Leaning back any amount will get you into the quad stretch. If your head isn't supported, just you can clap the hands around the head too. Just hold it up. If you're close to a stretch, like leaning back almost gets you there, think of your tailbone and try to kind of scoop it under like you're a dog tucking its tail. That tiny little action that almost nobody can see will intensify the stretch no matter where you're at. Yeah, so I would either plant your hands or plant your hands. We won't be here too much longer because the quads are one of those more intense muscle groups. So try to just send a couple more good deep breaths, let them flow in and out. Another 2 cycles. And 1. Work. Reverse every step you took to get into it, planting elbows, planting hands, eventually swinging the legs out in front of us. Again, let's do some windshield wipers. Take some time for the first round. Let these go a little bit to the left and a little bit to the right. Beautiful. When that feels pretty good, we'll take it into cobbler's pose. Bottoms of feet touch, knees are opening. This is one where you can use these cups out in front of us. I personally love the bolster at a taller height so that you can lean forward comfortably and rest your head down. With some people where the knees are significantly high, it might be nice to take a block under each knee so that the knees can actually relax open in the shape. That is an option you could choose. You could even put a block under the bolster if it's not quite high enough where you're at. Got lots of options. But find a way to try to rest, whatever that means for your body today. It's gonna look a little different for each of us. We all had our own unique stories that brought us to exactly where we are today. You can either stay in this pose a little bit longer, or option to straighten the legs out wide, leaning forward from there, if that feels like that would be helpful for your body today. In the spot where you found yourself, take 3 more connected breaths. That third breath finishes. Let's gently start to rise up. And let's start considering what Shavasana, or that final resting pose, our body might be grateful for today. I'll give you several options. One option could just be laying back, the bolster under the knees. That one always feels good. Bolster under the hips, like we had earlier with that huge arch, is another option. Since we have all these props that we do have today, if you'd like the ramp that we set up a moment ago, just to lay back onto it, that could also be just a really comfortable option for your spine today. Legs could be long or cobbler, whatever feels nice. So feel free to take some time exploring in your body. Listen, just play with what would feel amazing today. And begin to settle down into that comfortable shape. We take this restful pose at the end of our yoga classes because this helps us to have time to integrate all the benefits of the practice we had into our bodies. If we were to just get up right now and go, our body and our mind would be kind of disconnected. It's like, wait, what mode are we in again? But the Shavasana gives it that time to kind of integrate together. It's also extremely beneficial for the mind to practice, almost like a mini meditation after getting a lot of the physical energy out. So many benefits to the Shavasana. But the best part is all you have to do is just breathe. Especially with this thought of connection today. Try to imagine, even more than you ever considered possible before, imagine the connection of the breath to the body. Imagine each breath in is literally spreading life around. Each breath perhaps touches new spots, at least in your mind's eye. Let the breaths be deep and full, nice and relaxed. Begin to deepen the inhales. Deepen the exhales. Introduce little movements back to fingers and toes, ankles and wrists. Stretching out in ways that feel really good. Perhaps taking a fetal position off to one side if that feels good today. Either way, enjoying just a few good breaths. To start tuning deeply into body, mind, allowing this to be an opportunity for everything to connect. Perhaps take another 2 or 3 good deep cycles of breath until you feel ready to rise sooner or later. When you're comfortably up, let's take our hands together in front of the heart. Let's connect back to our intention one more time. Connection. Thinking perhaps of how much more connected we are to all parts of ourselves now than when we first came. Like we're not just a body whose only intention is to move the head around from point A to point B. Now we're a whole system, a system that is alive with breath, a system that feels sensation and emotion. And we're also reaching outward to some of those important connections around us. Perhaps we have an intuitive thought of how to deepen a connection with someone, or perhaps we just feel more connected, more plugged in general. So with all these different various ideas of connection to help inspire us and lead us on, let's wrap up the time we shared together with the sound of Om. Deep inhale now. May we be filled with light and happiness and peace. Namaste.